You can access the entire episode now on our website, forbiddenknowledge.news, Rokfin, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Now, did you have any other experiences along the way with your Army intelligence experiences that may have pointed to any other evidence that they may know more than they're letting on about the technologies that they have when it comes to reverse engineered craft and exotic technologies and things of that nature?
I don't have anything that I've seen physically, and I would expect that. You know, I was not one of the top leaders of any of these programs, so that to me makes sense. Now, if you think about, let's go to a site like Area 51. I won't, we're not going to mention any names of where it's at or anything like that, but if you kind of look at Area 51 and what it is a testing ground. It's a training and testing ground. And it's been the testing ground for some of the top U.S. aircrafts. It has been the top testing ground for nuclear devices and for other dirty bombs. So why would that area be a place where a lot of people see maybe UAP or alien activity? Well, there's two reasons why. One would be, well, go look at the F-117 Nighthawk that was created in the 80s. If you look at that aircraft, that looks a lot like what we consider an alien aircraft. So some of those can be pushed to the side to say, well, it's probably a testing aircraft. The other thing is the use of nuclear weapons. So that's the one side of it. You could just say, oh, it's a bunch of BS because it's just these aircraft, and that's why we're seeing these kind of things. Now, on the flip side of it is, if it's a nuclear testing ground and you are a highly advanced alien race, would not that be the area you go to view what these silly humans are doing to each other and maybe try to impact that? And so I could see both sides of that. And I've actually been in that area and had I was doing training with the guy and one of the pilots that was there, and he'd been doing some survival stuff. So he had been with minimal food and water and nobody around him for about 72 hours. And he told me about this time. He was out one night sitting there doing nothing because he was just doing his survival stuff. And he had gotten to such a low point. He was out of food, minimal water, and he wasn't getting anything back from his higher headquarters on when he was going to get picked up. So he was kind of in a bad mental state. But he told me, he said, there was a moment where I really think I saw a UAP. I said, well, what do you mean? And he goes, he was just sitting there and he's looking off in the distance. And now where this is at in the desert, you can see for miles. And and we're talking hundreds of miles from Las Vegas, Nevada. So the only light you can see is those Vegas lights. So there's none of that light pollution. There's no noise pollution. And he looks off into the distance and he sees a light. And it comes rushing towards him. And he's like, whoa, man. Those F-35s are coming in pretty fast. This is an F-35 pilot. He knows his vehicle. So, man, it's coming in really quick and really low. This is kind of concerning. I need to kind of maybe shoot off a flare and let them know that someone's in this area before they do something. And before he could do anything, it flies, just a few feet, what seemed like a few feet over his head, and it's gone. And no sound, didn't hear anything. And so a lot of people chalked it up to, the mental state that he was in, or because there's no noise or light pollution, it can kind of play tricks on you. And at night in the desert, things do play tricks on you, but it's yet another anomaly. And if you keep, putting those up next to each other, it goes from, oh, well, this is just a one-off thing to, well, now we're talking about multiple things. Now we're talking about people who are coming out who were pretty high level within the intelligence community who said that they have seen sort of the same things.
This is a big question in this community as far as how much of what we're seeing in the skies is truly anomalous or off-planet, non-human technology versus what has been reverse engineered or developed by our military-industrial complex. Let's start with your thoughts on how many years ahead you think the military technology at its highest levels is compared to what we have access to in the private sector.
Oh, light years. I mean, it is so far. It's so far advanced. So I'll go back to the F-117 Nighthawk. You know, that started in 1981. It didn't come into combat use till 2008. So you're talking decades. It went, I believe, over a decade before anyone even knew about the program. That's how highly classified these programs are. 1956 was when the site that we know as Area 51 was established for the military use, for the CIA. And it was I guess in the 60s it started to become a part of the space program. You know, we were fighting Russia to get to the moon. We wanted to get into space. We wanted to beat the Soviet Union, to get out there to show that, you know, communism is dead and the US and capitalism wins. And so a lot of development went on there. And it's a lot of things that we didn't know about for decades. And so that still happens today, even with the rate of information as we have it. I can attest there are things that are going on right now within the Department of Defense that I have no idea about that would just blow people's minds as far as, you know, space and weaponry that we are attempting to use. And there is a reason, a legitimate reason for that, and why the population doesn't know and should not know about those advances. And it's all based around national security. Anytime you say national security, that's you're going to get people's vote. Just keep me safe. That's all I want the government to do. So from a national security perspective, what we're developing, if it gets into the wrong hands, could be developed by an adversary like Russia or China or Iran. And that would be devastating for the U.S. So that's why it's kept highly classified. But another question that really gets to me that I would really love to tackle is, how do we make those advancements?
Right.
We kind of view all those advancements through science and technology. Everything's done in research and development, science and technology. But we have advanced so far from 1970 to today that is it plausible that just through the evolution of research and development that we have reached where we are right now, where we are at a capacity where we're talking about a simulation. This isn't even human life. We could be a simulation. And so if you're going to say maybe it wasn't research and development, maybe it wasn't science and technology, what really was it then? And you know, there are so many stories, through religious stories, through historical stories, of people being brought, you know, people having somebody come to them and improve what's going on. They see the human race is about to die off, and they said, we're not going to let that happen. Look at the flood stories. Every major religion has a flood story. Every culture, from you know, the Jews, the Christians, the Mesopotamians, Native Americans, have flood stories. You know, a lot of these flood stories, how do they survive? Well, they have a god, a being that tells them, hey, you kind of need to get ready. We're going to have a flood. Or a being or a god that ushers them out of the flood zone. Well, what does that sound like if you take, you know, religion out? If you say, okay, there's no God, nothing like that. What does that sound like? Well, it sounds like somebody from another galaxy has come over. Why? So logically thinking, why does every single culture have that? It can't be all these cultures that were far apart from each other, didn't exist together.